Gosh, those lights are bright, aren't they?
They are.
Hello, friends. It is so lovely to have you here, and it's particularly lovely to have some real friends in the audience. So thank you for joining us. And for those of you joining later online, thank you for joining us as well. My name is Kate Highfield, and I have the honour of chairing this panel, which is kind of fun and kind of terrifying at the same time. You never know what sort of question I'll ask you. Let's see how we go. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands on which we are on tonight, and particularly for those of you watching online, acknowledging the owners of the lands where you are viewing this. I'd also like to acknowledge ACME and thank them both for the incredible exhibit downstairs and also for hosting us tonight. Emily Sexton's in the audience and I have big shoes to fill. If you haven't watched the previous talk for this group, it is worth going back to that panel, amazingly hosted by Emily, and I'm slightly in awe that she's here tonight. Anyway, let's get going. I'm joined tonight with three amazing friends and colleagues and new friends and new colleagues. We've got the amazing Dr Vanessa Pirotta, and we've just discovered that we worked at the same uni at one point in time, which is pretty exciting. Vanessa, you are one of Australia's most renowned wildlife specialists, and most importantly for me, you are an incredible research communicator. You are a translator of research.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. More of a huge nerd, but one that is very passionate about my field, especially whales, who you'll meet tonight, and the opportunity to share science and make it part of the everyday and make it accessible is really important and has become a really big part of what I do as a scientist here in Australia.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We are also joined, and I'll jump to this end, by Chelsey O'Brien. Now, Chelsey, you're an ACME person. You work here.
Yes, I am.
You may or may not have one of my dream jobs as a curator, and she is the lead curator of the Play School exhibit here called Play School Come and Play, and we're hoping that you can share some of your experiences today around that. If you don't know Chelsey, she has a long-standing history in this space and has been the curator or part of the curatorial team on a number of key exhibits here across museums, galleries and with contemporary artists for over 15 years. It's just amazing that you are here. Thank you
so much for having me. I'm always excited to talk about exhibition making. So, yes, this is a very exciting opportunity to talk to you more tonight.
It's fabulous. And we have one of my favourite people in the whole world, the amazing, don't tell my family that. Don't tell my family that. We have the amazing Leah Vandenberg. Now, Leah is an Australian South Asian actor, and I'd like to really call her out as a trailblazer. Yeah. We are so thrilled that she is here. She has one of the most cherished roles on Play School, over 2 decades on Play School, as a presenter, but also as a writer. And I think that's pretty darned incredible. I'm going to embarrass Leah a little further. I follow her on social media, so I'm just fangirling a bit here. You might not know that Leah also has a Master's in International Community Development. And during COVID, she hosted an incredible series called The Treehouse Cubby. And I'm really hoping you might tell us a bit more about Treehouse Cubby a little later.
I promise I will.
Friends, as a lady in the middle of my life, let's go with that. I won't mention a specific age. I've grown up with Play School. Play School is 60 years old. You've grown up with Play School, and we find that many people have a really strong understanding of Play School and a strong identity around what Play School is and what Play School should be. I'm always fascinated by the way we think through this TV show. As a researcher, and I should say I'm a researcher at the University of Canberra, I research young children's engagement with digital technologies and media. But as a researcher, I find that parents, grandparents and children are all incredibly opinionated about Play School. They have perspectives and ideas and thoughts. And for me, one of the powers of Play School is that it reflects our society and reflects the changes in our society. I love that Play School addresses big ideas, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. We are going to do a very quick Menti, and a Mentimeter, this is completely anonymous, we'll bring that up for you on here, just gives us a chance to know who's here, who's joining. So if you can join in with that little QR code or go to menti.com and enter the number on screen, we would love to know, who are you here as? Are you here as a parent, as a teacher, as a student? Are you here as a grandparent, or perhaps as part of the media team? Or maybe you're here from a museum. I love a few dots appearing on screen.
Oh,
Lots of teachers are here.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that fun?
Yes.
See, there you go. Dots on screen. No grandparents here tonight.
Oh.
Okay. I am so pleased that we have grandparents here. Thank you so much. 5 students. Can I just give a shout out to the students? Go you being here tonight. Yeah. Welcome, students. We're so thrilled. A couple of museum friends are here. Oh, that is awesome. Alrighty. Friends, it's great for us to know who is here and to know who we're talking to. And I think the teachers are winning. Just saying.
Certainly are.
Not that we're competitive. Next question, and this one you will actually have to touch on a character, because we want to know who is your favourite character. And yes, friends, this is just an elaborate way of me inviting you to engage, and our last screen gives you a chance to ask the panel questions. But I thought it was, while we're here, worth checking who their favourites are. And apologies, I didn't get everyone in. We didn't manage to have... we're missing a few, Leah.
Mika's not there.
Mika's not there. No. Oh, gosh, that was mean of me, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
Anyway. Sorry, Mika.
Hi, Mika.
Can I just say Daisy the cow all the way?
Really?
I got to meet Daisy and it was the best thing ever. It was very closely guarded, hold it, don't make it messy. And then I gave it back. But my gosh, that was a life-changing moment.
It's very special.
I accidentally named my child Jemima.
You win. That's crazy cool.
It was an accident, a very happy accident, because Jemima's one of my favourites. Yeah. I love that. Big Ted, still holding strong.
Look at that.
Big Ted.
Morris isn't there either. Well, but Scrap. Scrap. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Love Scrap.
Oh, goodness.
It's
all about inclusion, isn't it?
It should be about inclusion.
So,
it's an interesting one. Leah,
Hanji.
Who's your favourite?
I can't say that. You know that. That's a
Not allowed
no-go area.
I'm
there is
sure
no.
you have a favourite.
Like the favourite child. No. We have soft spots for certain, but no one favourite.
No favourites. Okay. As a curator of an exhibit around Play School, do you have a favourite?
Oh, I think I have to go with the same. I mean, as a child, definitely Scrap, always. But those toys, my goodness, they're so special. And when you get to see them, and it's a quite transformative experience, I must say, when you see them. So hopefully that's something that visitors can enjoy when they see them downstairs in the exhibition.
And if you haven't been to the exhibition, you really need to. It is on until mid-July.
Yes, we've actually just extended. So we're extended to the 27th of July. And yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen it, it's really worth going to have a look. I'm not paid to say this at all, but it's one of those amazing pieces that gives you an insight into how an episode is formed. It gives you an opening into what are the thoughts behind it, what does a script look like, if you've got children or grandchildren and would like to take them. There's also a brilliant interactive opportunity for children to play with what does making an episode look like, and including 2 different camera angles, which I think is pretty powerful.
Yes.
It's very special.
It's very special.
Now, we have one last question in here around what do you think of when you think of Play School? What's that one word you associate with Play School? Someone's jumped in with happy. What do you think of when you think of Play School? Colourful?
I also thought colour.
You thought colour?
Colour.
You came with a good colour tonight?
Deliberately.
I love that.
Thank you.
Fun, excitement. Educational's in there. Interesting.
I love fluffy.
Fluffy. Okay, silly. Oh, joy. It's so important that we've got that there. For those of you who haven't seen this before, just like any good word cloud, the largest words are the words that are said most often. So engaging and colourful are bigger, creative. They're bigger because multiple people have included those words. Fascinating. I, as a teacher, have always been interested in the educational aspects of play school, but I'm also interested in the pro-social elements. Pro-social being things that really expand and promote positive ideas that society needs to encounter. And for me, that's a really powerful aspect of when we talk about the big ideas that play school addresses, and hopefully we'll get to those this evening. At the end of this evening's talk, if I've done my job appropriately, you will have a chance to ask questions. So this last slide is for you to, if you've got a question as you're going forward, keep your Mentimeter open and I'll see those questions pop up. We'll also come back to the question slide at the end, but as we're going through, I want you to think, what is a question I'd like to ask? You might be saying, oh, Chelsey, I want to know more about how you become a curator, or Leah, how did you end up where you are? You think of your questions and we'll hopefully get to those at the end of end of tonight's session. Alrighty, let's get going. We had our favourite characters. We had our favourite toys. I confess I've got favourite presenters and we're going to hear from one of my favourite presenters as we start. This gives us a little bit... Sorry, Leah, it's not you.
I was going to say, yeah, who is this?
This is my childhood about to appear on screen.
Hi, I'm Don Spencer and this is Big Ted. And we've been friends since 1968.
I'm going to tell you a story today.
This is how it goes.
It's about a little bear.
In 2026, our longest running children's program is turning the Big 60.
It's play school.
Happy birthday! Hip hip hooray!
And whether you're 3 or 83, chances are you've danced, laughed, sung along with your favourite toys.
Humpty's running as fast as he can.
And of course, the wonderful presenters like Benita and John, Monica and George, Rachel and Luke, and me. How lucky are we to have been playing together all of those years? That's 2,885 episodes, at least 17 different clocks, hundreds of picnics, recipes, adventures, tens of thousands of songs and stories.
Can you read with your hands?
London Bridge is falling down.
And if I did the maths, 12 bajillion craft projects. Of course, things have changed a little over the years.
Rocket to control room. Ready to go.
Wow! And just like me, play school is now all grown up, but still young at heart. Reflecting the lives of young people living in Australia. Never shying away from big topics.
Oh, thanks, Jamal, for being an ally.
And always having fun.
Shake,
Bippity-bop, shoop-shoop-boom.
Now, you've probably debated about which window is the best window. Well, it's always been the arch window for me.
You've got to love a bit of Don, don't you? Isn't he incredible?
He is.
It's pretty special. And that history, that 60-year history, is really unheard of around children's media internationally. It's quite a remarkable feat. And there's a few play school people in the space tonight, and we're so grateful for your ongoing curatorship in here. It's a really important piece of work. I am slightly biased. I do occasionally work as a friend of play school in an educational advisor role, and it's a remarkable show that really holds education and play so seamlessly. So, Leah.
Yes, I've started crying already. That's what play school does. Yeah. It's that enduring sense of warmth and love and inclusion. I did warn Katie at the beginning. I said I might get teary, but I didn't think that would make me do it.
But can I just say it's really important that we do. It shows that you have an emotional reaction to this.
Yeah.
And I think that commitment is really powerful. Anyway, we won't talk about tears. Leah holds a really special place here. She holds a pretty unique role on our panel as both a presenter but also as a writer of Play School. And we could go into long stories about what those two things look like. But instead, as someone who's been on the show for 26 years, I'd like to hear about how you've seen Play School evolve.
I think that was a really good indicator. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is this description of the ABC in the early days being a BBC outpost. You can see that in the language and the accent. There's a bear in there.
Yeah.
And what story are we going to say? It's that we don't speak like that anymore. And so the accent in which we share the ideas has definitely changed. And I would say even I can see how my voice has changed from 1999 to now, and I've watched old episodes and gone, yeah, that's shifted the way that I communicate with the child. And I would say the pacing, one of the beautiful things about Play School from my side is that the pacing is quite measured and gives the child that chance to just be rather than always being, a 3-second edit. So I think the pacing of Play School has got a little faster, and maybe the word count per minute is faster, but still that's moving with the way the children are working now. Other ways that I think it's evolved is what we wear, our wardrobe. I mean, at the beginning, we had to not really sing to anything that was, it had to kind of be it wasn't the Wiggles, but it was sort of had to be quite neutral. And it was only in my last episode that I sort of offered the idea that I wear a kurta. So, I get teary.
What is a kurta?
So it's a traditional Indian, South Asian shirt. And even then when why do I get so emotional? It's because these things matter to the children watching. And so even wearing something like that and how it evolves is kind of a big idea with a little invitation. Certainly we've had lots of different clocks. What else? And of course, we kind of map the migration of Australia through how presenters are chosen on Play School and the content that reflects that. So at the beginning, it was very Anglo-Celtic, and now
to take that further, it was very white Anglo-Celtic.
It was, yeah, it was, and there wasn't really any First Nations representation either. So now we certainly have First Nations presenters and Greek Australian, Korean Australian, Kenyan Australian, and so all of us have input into content as a result of that.
And that to me is really exciting. For a young child, they can't see what they can't be what they can't see. And so that idea of representation really matters. And I think we could say that the whole media landscape has changed that way. There are further steps we need to take, but Play School has certainly led the way in many elements. I'm going to flip to as a writer.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
And I also, on a writing shift, is when I first started, we didn't use the first person pronoun I. And all of the scripts that you would have going to the shop now, going to buy some vegetables. There was never I. And I'm not sure how long that was part of the script writing, but I hypothesised that it was because we didn't want to make that division between presenter and child, and so it was more of inclusive intentionality through the script. But that's now changed. We now use I and we and all of that. Yeah, sorry. Back to you.
It is really
interesting for me.
It's really interesting how we have evolved, and thankfully our society has evolved, and Play School has really kept pace with that. As a writer, I want to think through some of the big ideas that you feel that you've been able to champion.
I think the idea around representation and it not being tokenistic is something that's been a driver with me. So in terms of that tension between being representative but not what's the word? It's representing without furthering a sense of otherness. So I could give an example to that. Would I? Yeah. So, for instance, wrote an episode around India, and I suggested that Punjabi is like the fastest growing language in Australia at the moment. And so I wanted to include some Punjabi language through song. So I wrote a song and then brought into two Punjabi men who wore turbans. So we have that representation of two men in turbans, which is a big thing to have in studio. But I was quite clear that I also wanted to have these men not just there for the music and the dance, but also be participants in play. So that's that kind of a big idea around inclusion and acceptance and normalising men in turbans by including them in the play. So they were with Humpty and the Dolls. Was Humpty's housewarming party. Yeah. So little things like that, and speaking to dignity and respect of typically marginalised communities, and making sure that, that not all the scripts have Anglo-Celtic names. So it might be a Julia. I'll say maybe we can shift that name to a Jasmeet, or just that's my default is when I look through a script. As a presenter, it's like, how are we being representative in a meaningful and genuine way?
One of the pieces that makes Play School quite magical is that the team that works behind the scenes in writing the scripts and in the educational advice space means that things are really iterative. So if a presenter says, we should change this, the whole team listens, and that's a remarkable feat. It means that we actually are iterating and changing quite quickly.
True. We even have, like, in our read-throughs around the table, the floor manager will have their input as well. Everybody, speaks to what is on the page, and it's listened to, which is pretty unique.
It's remarkable.
I will say something. I think about the enduring nature of Play School, and I don't think it's spoken enough around. It's predominantly female led. Yeah, from
an all-female panel. We like that.
Yeah. So there's lots of hugs on set, but I think there is something around that sensitivity potentially, and insight that the endurance of the show can be tracked to the female-led aspect.
Amazing. I'm going to flip over to the exhibit downstairs, if that's okay. And this, somewhat embarrassingly, if I wasn't going to be a teacher and a researcher, I would have wanted to be a museum curator. So I am living a little vicariously here. And I want to chat with Chelsey because our panels in this series, these talks, are all brought to us because of the exhibit, and such a great add-on to an exhibit from an ACME perspective. But I have the amazing Chelsey here, and I've got a few questions for you. For me, the exhibit's amazing, and I just love how it helps uncover the magic of television without sort of fully breaking the magic of television. There's something in there. I want to know, what are you loving in the space? What are you really seeing in that space, and what are your learnings?
Well, I guess I want to start by saying that, goodness, what a gift of an exhibition this has been for all of us at ACME to work on. It was really important when we thought about how we would create the space to think about kids. You talked a lot about representation. Play School's such a moment on screen, and it's such a core part of philosophy, that notion of talking to one child and really making that child feel seen by those presenters, by that show. Out in the world, that's not always the case for small humans. So the exhibition took that on board and thought, well, first of all, it needs to be scaled for a 2 to 5 year old. Kids need to come into that space and know that this is for them. So it extends that invitation, or it extends that respect that is integral to Play School as a series. So that was something that I think has been really fascinating for us, to see how kids interact with the space, because everything is for them and scaled for them. But it has had some interesting flow-on effects. The screens are all lower, and it does mean that I think parents probably don't engage with them in the way that we were expecting. So that's been interesting learnings. I think also what's been fascinating is the fact that when you give a child, or at least it would seem that in this exhibition, when we've given the child screens versus toys and interactives that they can play with, they gravitate here. So where we thought they would really be glued into the screens and the presenters talking about the space, that's sort of not as much been the case as we were anticipating. But this exhibition was a fantastic opportunity for us to really be specific around our audience and, as I say, really design around them. So thinking about things like 2 to 5-year-olds are mostly non-readers, so having screens that talk you through the space was really important. Also thinking about the way we included Auslan in the exhibition, because of course, again, 2 to 5-year-olds aren't readers, and English English isn't first language for Auslan speakers. So that was really important, and an important inclusion as well there. But there are so many things that I think have just really delighted us. Of course, the rocket clock, we knew that that was going to be a core moment in the exhibition, but seeing the way that children gravitate towards that reading space and having a moment to kind of sit back and take stock has been just really delightful to see. I could go on and on and on. So what's the next question? And then I'll see if I can.
When we talk about children's screen time, I argue very firmly that we need to move away from this idea of screen time into co-viewing, co-engagement. You've deliberately designed some aspects for co-engagement. Do you want to talk through those?
Yeah, sure. So particularly for a behind the scenes for 2 to 5-year-olds, that's quite an alien idea because, first of all, understanding the building block of screen literacy, that this is something that has been made, is quite, that's a new idea for these young minds. So we were very conscious of creating a space that had both familiar elements and weaved in with things we knew that they wouldn't be familiar with. Say, for example, a production office. That's a space that many kids won't be used to seeing all the time, or may not even...
Or their parents.
For that matter. So we wanted to create a display that reflected a space of making. So something that you might be familiar with in a play school, in a kindergarten or a preschool environment, having these really clear coded design choices around signalling a making space. Within the production office, that's probably the place where we do a lot of, heavily lifting around the behind the scenes. So we have a production schedule on the wall, and very specifically, it's the play school production schedule. Mm-hmm. We use real world language, and it reflects exactly the week to weeks, the picture lock, the writing process. It has scripts in it. We know that 2 to 5-year-olds might not be sitting there and engaging with that detail of the content, but for their parents and for their older siblings, it's such a rich moment of engagement. The activity that's a part of the production office allows you to create your own episode with very recognisable segments: the rocket clock, cooking, reading a story, singing a song, and the presenters explain that you can build your own episode. The table is designed in such a way that the episode could be as long as you want, or it could be very short. For very, very, very little visitors, it can just be about matching things, So it was integral that activity had both open-ended play, but then also quite purposeful and structured play. But of course, this is an area where we really encourage our carers and kids to play together. Similarly, in the action set where our visitors get to be their own presenters, that's a moment where parents and children can really engage together as a presenter, as a camera operator, as a director, because there are a few different modes of engagement in that space. And very specifically, when designing this exhibition, we thought about different types of play, very sort of basic. What is construction play? What is imagination? Or imaginative play? What is all these different types of elements? And we really thought about the displays to try and reflect different entry points for different different little minds so that there was something that they could gravitate towards.
So much thought behind this whole exhibit, even down to the furniture and the deliberate design of the furniture and how you can sit on it. There's so much.
Yes, those chairs are they're actually quite fun because you can flip them. So for a grown-up, you can flip them and sit on them very easily, or for a small person, you can flip them and they feel like, again, they're designed for a small human, which is excellent.
Isn't it amazing to see such thought going into an exhibit that, it's very powerful, and huge congratulations to you and the team.
Yes, definitely. All of our exhibitions are very collaborative, so it's always a team sport here at ACME.
It's great to hear. We talked a little about that co-engagement piece, and I think parenting and play school is the perfect example of co-engagement. So I'm going to come over to you, Vanessa. Thank you for waiting so patiently. Play school's an interesting space because it invites parents and other people, carers, into the child's experience of play in a way that the exhibit does as well. So I want to flip to you, Vanessa, firstly, as a mum of 2 children, I want you to think through your experience of play school as a parent and what does that look like before we flip to you as a science communicator and a friend of play school. So as a parent, I want you to think through what stood out for you around viewing play school, co-engaging with your children.
Well, it's so important because, and my kids, I call them calves because I'm a whale scientist. They're 5 and 3. And so before I was even on play school, I grew up with it. It's the OG thing, right? We love play school, the visuals, the colours, everything. It was always there. But then when I had children, I re-engaged with it again, which was really special. But the opportunity to kind of, something's good when you turn something on and your children are watching, and then I find myself so many times just stopped in what I'm doing and just watching it and just thinking through everything. But ever since I've been on it, like my perception has completely changed. Like I thought, so for example, as a scientist, I've written children's books, and I always had this intention of writing for a 2 to 5 year old age. But I wasn't suited to that age because I didn't have the understanding that I have now. And it is a dream actually to create a book to then maybe have it on play school. But to address your question specifically, the opportunity to kind of understand the topics that are explored in play school and actually just sit there with my kids and engage with it is very special, because the secret sauce of so much of what we do is to sweep across generations. And while we think that play school is just for young kids, it's very much, it's watching the presenters, it's engaging with how they tell the stories. And now the way I see it is it's changed completely. It's my love has grown even more, to be quite frank.
Fair enough. So now she's a fangirl too. So we're all
very much so.
in there.
Absolutely.
Now, Vanessa, the episodes I've seen you on, particularly, you were very involved in Science Time.
Yes, so I was on Science Time, and then there was another down at the beach episode.
Did you bring in whales?
Yes, so one of the whales, well, I've only got one. So because I work on whales, they're very large. In fact, I always scale up the room. So the size of this board behind us, that's probably the size of a small whale, a real whale size that I work on, like a humpback whale like Winston. They're probably from that wall to beyond me, to not probably the extent, maybe a blue whale would be that length, but they're massive. And so one of the things that I quite like about play school is that there's that connection to play, but also there's the connection to being very visual. And as a student, as a young kid, I didn't realise how visual I was. So to put it in this way, whenever I see a humpback whale like Winston, I see an aeroplane. I can't explain it. It's when I was little, I used to have planes. I grew up on a farm outside of Canberra. Like, it's just a bizarre thing, but I was fascinated by the shape, everything about an animal. And that design, I really champion STEAM as a thing, science, technology, engineering, art and math, because so much of what I do has that in it. And play school's been doing that ever since. Like, you've always been doing that. And it's just now an outlet to say, hey, that's STEAM. You guys are doing it.
Was it STEAM. What was
It's
the
like
acronym?
STEM.
Science.
So science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's an acronym. It's terrible. But the thing is that we, as a scientist, we're always banging on about the fact we want representation in STEM or STEAM. Because I too grew up as a young girl seeing Ranger Stacey. And hello, I come from an Italian Maltese background. There's no ethnic Ranger Stacey out there, is there? And I love Ranger Stacey, by the way. We've since connected. But do you know what I mean? Like the representation just wasn't a thing. And so I was always this little wog girl who loved Wales and Canberra growing up. But for me, being able to come home after school, 3:30, play school was on, these memories come flushing through and it's just fabulous. So I've always had a warm association with it.
I love it. When you prepare a panel, you're meant to sort of prompt people with the questions you're going to ask. I'm just asking one that's completely off script, okay? Vanessa, when Winston's travelling with you,
Yes.
Is he in your handbag or in your carry-on luggage? I'm wondering how well received he is as you go through the X-ray.
Well, Winston was not even a thing, and now Winston's almost become, if you remember Jane Goodall, she used to carry her little monkey with her.
Yeah.
This has kind of become that, and I never thought that it would be, because, again, I just want to show people, that they've got tubercles, they've got belly buttons, their throats open up like an accordion, they fart, they've got hair. You know what I mean? Like, we can't bring a whale in, so it's kind of like this prop that goes everywhere. And so, in my hand luggage, because I think Winston's becoming like quite a thing now.
I love it. I have other questions about Winston, but I'm going to move away from that. Instead, I would love to play a little excerpt of Vanessa on Science Time.
Oh, look, there's two of them.
That's a mummy whale and her calf. It looks like the calf is popping up to say hello, doesn't it?
Oh, speaking of hellos, hello, I'm Teo, and this is Dr Vanessa Pirotta.
Hello, you can call me Vanessa.
Vanessa is a wildlife scientist. Can you guess what her special area of interest is?
Whales! I love studying whales and learning from them so we can better protect the ocean and help keep them safe. This is a photo I took of a humpback whale in Antarctica.
What's it doing?
It's peck slapping. This is where they bring their arm up out of the water and slap it on the surface. It makes a lot of sound. And this is a photo of the ship we travelled in. And this one here is of me with an enormous iceberg behind. Just me, ice and water all around.
Oh, no wonder it's so cold. Hey, I've spotted something. You said it was very cold in Antarctica, and it must be. Look at how many layers you're wearing to keep warm.
So many layers, and honestly, I was still a bit cold.
I have a question. If you need so many layers to keep warm, why don't whales need anything to keep warm? Let's investigate. Come on, it's science time. When I put my bare finger into the icy cold water, it felt really cold.
So cold you gave it a 10.
Exactly. But when I put my finger covered in the butter blubber, it hardly felt cold at all. So that must mean it's blubber that helps protect the whales from the very cold water in Antarctica.
You're spot on, Teo. Blubber is a thick layer of fat that acts like an insulator. It's what helps these whales stay warm in the cold environments.
Ooh, it's like a built-in jacket.
I love it. There are so many questions I have now about blubber, but I'm staying focused. As a science communicator, as someone with a passion for science, what are some of the big ideas that you've seen addressed through Play School, or maybe even some of the ideas that you think we should be considering, and why does that matter in terms of science communication?
It's so important. It's so important that we can have a platform for our very youngest generations, because it's that first, in my opinion, that first entry point to their connectivity with something that they might be really interested in. And it's often, sometimes students don't know what they're interested in, and then they see something and they're like, wow, this is totally the thing. To be able to even have something called Science Time. Me and my kids always sing the song. We love it. Let's experiment. And anyway, so to make science such a nice, accessible thing, and actually a dedicated panel, or not a panel, but a dedicated series to that, is really important, because it shows that someone gives a hoot about science, and that it allows students, young minds, to see and connect with something really, really important. But it goes beyond just science time. It's having access to people who are actually doing things and being scientists for the science field. Obviously, you get to sweep across a whole variety of different people doing different things in society. But it's also that connection for those people who are enabling their young ones to be watching this. Why would you as a teacher put a science time episode on, or a certain episode of Play School? You've actively thought about that to be able to share it and to make that accessible. That's really important. So in essence, for me as a scientist and seeing what Play School does, it's equipping people with the tools and regardless of their socioeconomic background, which is really bloody important, because people need to have access to educational content, and it's a no-brainer for anyone to be able to show something like this and to have it running in the background as you're cooking dinner, and then you hear someone like Leah talking about making chalk, and like, it's really interesting. It's an avenue to explore and be excited and to celebrate that excitement. Often as scientists we're told, write papers, don't talk to people, don't mention sharks. I get told to do so many things, and you just got to get out there so that students can see someone like Leah on TV doing amazing things, and so we can have this chat so that you can feel inspired, because many of you are teachers, and I'm talking to teachers tomorrow and I'm telling them about Play School. But sometimes the teachers need to be reminded of why it is what you do, why you do what you do, and that's really important.
It's such an interesting piece. When we talk about pedagogic content knowledge, that teachers, we have to have an understanding of how we teach our pedagogy. We also have to have an understanding of content. And I think one of the things that Play School does, and you've done through Play School, is break down content that's quite complex into simple language.
Oh, absolutely. Like even showing it as, I say students because I lecture, so I'm like, they're not kids. They're not kids. But yeah, showing the kids the fins that I use, a mask, the way that a whale breathes. And then you're like, oh yeah, I use all this stuff all the time. And then you're like, oh, I don't stop to think. It's just, again, that visual. And saying how we go on a ship. We go to a ship because the whales go to Antarctica. That is awesome. And at the same time, we're educating the parents or the guardians about these complex things that we as adults don't really give a hoot about. But we're bringing it front of mind in a really nice, neutral way. And can I say, until I was in those read-throughs, Leah, understanding how it was really nice, the team's like, are you sure this is right? Like, we want to make this factually correct. I had no idea on the other side of just watching a show of how much goes into it, to the way things look, the words used. It's so in-depth that my appreciation for it has just skyrocketed, and it's an amazing thing to understand.
I know a lot of people think we're improvising.
No way.
It's really, really considered.
Very.
Every single word. And we don't have auto cue either. That seems to be another myth out there that we're reading. But no, we've learnt 30 pages of very intentionally written scripts.
But also learning the scripts, I did it with my children. So it's been like the best motherhood thing of my life, being able to learn my scripts with my kids. Like, that is just an unexpected. And also one of the other things is that, can we bring back, when you read the book, the actual turning of the pages?
It's still there.
No, but it's like there's a vision that cuts to it. You know, but like the actual turning of the pages. I used to love that as a child, listening to that.
Yeah. Right, there's complications with that. But we can put that forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting too that because I think with the exhibition, one of the things that so many people are commenting on is with that production schedule, we have it very clearly laid out in weeks, and it takes 32 weeks to create an episode. And so many people have commented, oh my goodness, it takes 32 weeks to create one episode. Actually, it's 5. But it's been interesting to see that kind of side of it and have that reaction.
And you mentioned that most of the time it's 32 weeks to make 5 episodes, because the episodes come out in a series of 5 for over a week. But Play School also has these, what they call specials. For teachers in the audience, the specials are absolutely golden. They are incredible pieces of work. There's things in specials, things like Walking Together, Ready, Set, Big School, one of my favourites, All Together Now. And for the teachers, these are called evergreen content, which means that the content is always available on iView. Regular episodes will only go back 7 years in time on iView, but the special episodes around particular topics are there for forever. They're evergreen, which means that you know that that episode is always going to be there. So if you're watching as a teacher, go through and have a look at some of the special episodes. I assisted on a special episode with Professor Susie Edwards, who's in the audience, around children's use of technology and staying safe online. But these big ideas that children need to see, and there's opportunities for them to engage in their classroom, either their early learning centre or in their school context. And knowing that that content is there is a powerful piece. So, Leah, I want to jump back to you with a tiny excerpt from All Together Now. And you were one of the writers on All Together Now?
Yeah, I was the writer.
The writer. I love
with
it.
a beautiful team of collaborators and advisors and experts.
Amazing. So let's have a little look at All Together Now. I will say that this is, for me, quite a charged piece. So as we watch, there's so many things I want to talk about. So let's see.
Okay, let me help you with this pebble, Jamal. Thanks, Ruby. There. Hello, I'm Alex. More friends here, helping each other in a playground. Ruby and Jamal Banksha are building a bushland playground, a playground where everyone can play. They've made lots of different things to play on for all the bush dwellers, the people who live here. Ruby and Jamal are exploring with their senses. Ruby is smelling the flowers in the garden. Oh, they smell so beautiful. And Jamal is finding his way, listening out for the sounds. This musical path leads him to the sensory garden. And this path goes to the merry-go-round. Oh, Ruby, I'm so excited. I can't wait for the bush dwellers to arrive. Oh, me too, Jamal. Hey, I'll climb up into the tree house and see if anyone's coming. Another bush dweller coming to play.
Hi, I'm Jasjeet Bottlebrush.
Hi, Jasjeet.
Hi, my name's actually Jasjeet, not Jasjit.
Oh, sorry, Jasjeet. I'm Ruby and I'm Jamal.
And I'm Tasneem.
Hi.
Jasjeet, what do you like to do in the playground?
Oh, lots of things. I love to shoot hoops. I crush it on the skate ramp. Woohoo! Yeah! Oh, I'm a pro at finger knitting and I love to be up high.
Oh, why don't I show you our tree house?
Okay.
Have you ever played in a tree house before?
There's only a ladder to get up the top and my wheels can't climb up ladders.
Oh, that's a point. We didn't think of that. Let's make something.
It's pretty powerful. And what is powerful for me is that you've thought through children who are experiencing difference in a way that many of those children are not seen. That children who experience difference for a range of reasons might not have opportunities, and that's come out really loudly for me here.
It's good to hear.
Oh, good. We've ticked the box.
Yeah, well, this special was addressing the idea and concept of allyship. So the team were really we're finding ways to depict all of those aspects of allyship and those values aligned within that. And we also had 5 presenters, which is unusual for a play school episode. So in a way, the message of allyship and inclusion was also being worked through how we equitably disseminate the information in the script to the 5 presenters, so no one felt left out. So on this particular segment, this one was really exploring different empathy, different perspectives, and that part of allyship is listening and being curious about what everybody's needs are. And for my part, from my work with Treehouse Cubby, I was working with children from migrant and refugee spaces. And something that came up with doing that, which helps feed into something like this, is children who have names that aren't, Anglo-Celtic, and the common story of their names being mispronounced or shortened. And the children now who I meet are very assertive. And if I get, if someone's Aisha and I call her Aisha, she will call me out and say, no, it's Aisha. And I was like, okay, I am sorry. Now, maybe that might not have happened even 10 years ago. The child might be quiet, but we've got children now who are assertive. And in this little, I wanted to sort of bring that into this in a micro moment with Jasjeet. And it was true story. His name was always being mispronounced, and it's two syllables. And just for that moment, for one child to incorrectly pronounce it, and for him to correct them, and for it not to be a big deal. Okay, moving on now. Yeah, so it's really important, I think, for all of us, just to, as grown-ups, to actually lean in and at least get people's names right, because it matters to children. That's their identity, and often their cultural heritage. So yeah, that was part of it, and that we in toy play certainly apply more melanin to certain dolls to actually represent what could happen in a playground for everyone, and in a way that playground for everyone is a bit of an idealistic vision of our world. We really want a place where everyone feels welcome and sense of belonging and heard and seen, and to see the toys play out how we can all support each other and be allies to each other, even though they don't know each other, a lot of these toys. They're meeting for the first time. And so that's kind of one of the aspects of allyship as well, is that you're not necessarily in a friendship group with somebody, but you can still be an ally in supporting their needs. Yeah.
You touched on that idea of micro moments. Can you talk more about that? What's a micro moment?
I think they're ones that are, it's a like a little speckle of intentionality that isn't making a big deal, but its impact is actually quite significant. So I get, for instance, that Jasjeet moment, I get DMs, oh my goodness, I love it that you actually address that. Or that even just hearing names, that those little micro moments. The kuta is a micro moment. When I wore that's going to be so. And it's, I guess too, that in the making of this, you're bringing your own experience, and everybody in the team is bringing their own experience, and that's why it is so emotionally charged. Because, and I'm kind of glad I got my tears out at the beginning. Thank you for going through that with me. But this kind of special brings up my own sense of, or my experiences of not being included, and of, bullying and my experience as a woman of colour, from child to now, and everybody in the room has those experiences. But I think I'm grateful to be asked to be writer of this, because those really do feed into, your experience feeds into how we can bring this information to children in a genuine and meaningful, real way. Yeah,
I love it. To me, one of the pieces of special sauce with Play School is that it's meaningful. And it's intentional, and it balances play and education in a way that you don't feel as though you're being educated. It's amplifying. So sometimes the micro is actually amplifying a pro-social message that we really need to be arguing and articulating.
It normalises it in a way that isn't signposting normalisation, I think.
Interesting. Friends, if we can pop that Mentimeter back up again, it's your time to ask some questions of us, and we would love to hear from you. So if you've got a question for the panel, please jump on in, whatever that question might be. I'm going to start with an off-script for Vanessa around sustainability. To me, I am incredibly worried about the consumerist nature of many children's lives and the absolute immersion in plastic toys, and I'm calling out McDonald's. I want some recyclable McDonald's toys. Maybe we shouldn't be eating McDonald's, but that's another story. I want to think through sustainability messages and some of those particular pieces that you're seeing amplified on Play School.
Well, the best thing I ever have done via Play School, many things, is simply telling people not to release balloons into the air. That is such a simple thing. So, and since I've had that episode, I've actually got, so if I speak in a room full of children and adults, it's don't release balloons into the air. And if you're a big kid, because people want to, they don't, sometimes they see a scientist and they're like, oh, we can't do anything because we don't do that because, you actually, every single person in this room can make a change for these kind of things. And I think that Play School really enables the conversation to come into your lounge room, which is great. So the next time a child goes to a birthday party, they know not to release a balloon, because I literally, as a scientist, will pick up balloons on the humpback highway. Like that, they go out there. And obviously you may have seen my choice of clothing on that episode. I deliberately wore a top that had a krill, a little small crustacean on top of it. But the messaging, so there's other secret messages. So that's like the main thing to say, the animals, they eat krill. But we as big kids sometimes will have krill in krill oil tablets, things like that. So it's like subtle messages that you can then draw back upon. But the main thing is with Play School, it's like, as well as in other messages, take 3 for the sea. So when you come up to the beach, you can pick up rubbish, and just making sure that it's an easy, simple activity, and thinking about our actions on land and how they have impact in the ocean as well. So connecting the environments, and much of what I do as a scientist is all about making that connection between us and the animals that we study, which is the size of a school bus.
And that, again, is the macro that has such a meaningful impact. I have a child who doesn't release balloons for that reason as well. Leah, this one's for you. Is there any room for improvisation on Play School? Historically there was. Is there now?
Yes and no. There's also, if we're, when we're wriggling like a worm or jumping like a frog or swimming like a fish, we're clearly going to be improvising our version of that. There's a time constraint, so we don't really go off script. We work out, what we're going to do a week before in a rehearsal room to then be able to just shoot 2 episodes a day on the day, which, so 2.5 hours of television on a day is a lot to get through. So I would say it's a yes and a no, but we don't really get a lot of time to go off script, because we also have 3 cameras, which, and in our scripts we'll have toys, camera 2, or you're on camera 1, and maybe whatever you're crafting is on camera 3. So we're actually learning with our dialogue, we're supposed to learn, with the dialogue what camera we're at. So there's not a lot of space to kind of go, I'm just going to improvise this, because you've got particular cameras on you for particular segments.
I love that. Next question, Chelsey, for you. The rocket clock in the exhibition, is it the real one from the show?
Oh, what is real? So for the exhibition, we have remade it for the exhibition because, of course, we wanted our visitors, particularly downstairs, to engage with it with a different way than how they would engage with the clock on the show. So it's become a crawl through space. So you can crawl through the rocket clock and then experience the reading nook behind that. But as I mentioned before, it was really important that the rocket clock looked as perfect as it could, be as much like the one that you see on the screen, so that it was that point, that touch point, that anchor experience. It does look amazing. I didn't realise they were installing it the day that they installed it, and I kind of came around the corner and I was just floored. This beautiful, it turned out so well. The team did such an incredible job. And of course, the rocket clock is going to go on tour. So we couldn't take the rocket clock from production because then we couldn't send it out to regional venues.
And for those of you who aren't aware, the exhibition is going on tour. We're not quite sure where it's going to regionally. But for a researcher who knows that children in regional areas often have different experiences, that is such an amazing piece of equity and a very powerful message for ACME and for Play School. So very exciting. I think this might be for you, Vanessa. Is Play School Science Time designed for a different age group, or does it just really enter into the early primary age group as well?
That's maybe not a question for me, actually.
It is a little bit older, I think.
I think it can swoop.
Goes to 8, is it? 8? Yeah.
Yeah, but also, even if you have younger ones, which I have a sample size of one younger one than that, it's just so engaging. Seeing my son wants to watch Leah create chalk constantly every week. Like, he really does. Like, he just sits there watching out the chalk episode. And I cannot, there's the whale episode. He doesn't want that one. But the chalk, he's just so engaged with it. And so I guess it's probably for the older age, but it has definitely appeal beyond and a lot younger.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. My kids also love Science Time, and we repeat watch the slime episode all the time, and the snot one. Yeah.
I have no words about slime, other than to say if you need to get it out of clothes or hair, you can use vinegar.
Okay.
Just so you know. This is a really interesting one and a bit of a challenge. We've talked about representation a bit tonight. It's, for me, one of the big ideas. We've talked about a number of big ideas. But this one is about how do we avoid tokenistic representation, whether we're talking about our First Nations colleagues or working with Indigenous educators. How do we avoid being tokenistic?
I think it speaks to what I was saying earlier around not just showing someone in their cultural space as affirming. So, for instance, two men in turbans playing music. It's not. They're not just there in a tokenistic intention as two Punjabi men who are playing, Bhangra, and we associate them as that. And it's about expanding these notions of stereotypes that these two men are also people who can engage in play with the toys. So and making it as best as we can an inclusive environment. So when we go through the windows, we often will see people in their own environment. So it's finding those children from different cultural backgrounds in their own environment, doing something with, whether it's cooking or dancing, but expanding it so that we see that particular person in a bigger, more inclusive space. And I mean, one of my wishes is that we have a hijabi wearing female presenter on Play School, and that would not be tokenistic because we'll be normalising having a Muslim woman in a presenter role on Play School. And so not just, I think does that answer that question a little bit?
I think it does. And I think it's about making the micro an essential part of what we're doing. And the other piece is to remember that everything that happens on Play School has been through ranges of consultation. So if we're working with First Nations content, we would obviously and deeply engage with our colleagues and friends in that space. It's important. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, so we're really getting to that end point. And I have one last question, which is around the links to curriculum and learning. How does the show engage in that deep learning? And we all might have a go at looking at deep learning and what that looks like. So, Vanessa, deep learning, big ideas. How does the show engage with that?
Well, it sweeps across, and I write my children's books as well based on the curriculum. And so it's really important for us to think about when we talk about the sciences, for example, and biology, living things. It seems so obvious to us, but when you break it down for a younger audience, it's quite complex. In fact, if anything, Play School has taught me about the animals that I study, ironically. You're thinking about the fact that whales have blubber to keep them warm. It's always like, oh yeah, they've got blubber. But until you actually sit and you break that idea down, you don't really give it much thought. And I quite like that. It's actually helping us. It renders you quite vulnerable to be talking about something that you think you know 100% about, but then explaining it. That's really incredible. So, and to give a teacher a tool or a guardian or whoever it is, a simple way of explaining quite complex science, and I'm talking behalf of science and biology, that's very powerful. And I think sometimes we often overlook how important that is, and especially as someone who's teaching students at university, they come into the university world not knowing like where they fit or that they've got transferable skills. And I think that's a problem in society. We need to make sure that we have this from the get-go, from the youngest in society, and that's where Play School really cements these foundational ideas and we should be normalising the fact if someone's going to wear a certain thing, like why does it have to be so thought about? We should just do it. Like I just work with First Nations scientists. I'm doing that because we want to learn about an animal together. Why does it have to be so drawn out? It should just be a normal thing that we do.
And it's really necessary as well. I mean, I don't think I'm answering the question, but I'm just thinking as well around, I don't do that, sorry, I don't stay on the point. But there's something around that, it kind of blends into what we were talking about before as well, because it's just reading like the Islamophobia register and the significant increase in physical and verbal abuse towards women, Muslim women and children, women and girls, 75% women and girls. So this plus Human Rights Commission saying that 83% of children between 13 and 17 have witnessed or experienced racism. So in terms of like the learning that's required, we as grown-ups need to, I think, in our places like Play School, need to be able to really dive into that complex reality that children are experiencing and support them in making sense of it, but giving tools in how to process and how to enable them to have a nervous system that is going to be okay at the end of the day, because all of those incidences, children are either experiencing firsthand or witnessing. And I do urge you to even just read some of these reports. The testimonials are really heavy, and I think Play School has got a platform there to be able to find ways to address those particular sectors of our society and address the needs of those children.
And that's both through the big picture as well as those micro moments.
That's right.
It's a powerful piece.
Yeah.
Chelsey, something from the learnings that you were seeing in this space.
Yes, certainly. I think that, particularly important and certainly something that we really kind of embraced from the Play School philosophy is that notion of, I guess, not talking down to children and really using real world language and kind of explaining it in a way that's accessible, sure, but not sort of just assuming because they're kids they're not going to get it. So that was something that came out very early. And certainly, you know, there's a whole lot of episodes that we were really inspired by that dealt with behind the scenes and, you know, what's a radio station? It was the Lights, Camera, Action series, which was excellent. And so much of those episodes had such technical information about it. And that, I guess, really gave us the confidence to do the same in the exhibition. So that was certainly one of the ways that we were able to translate those big ideas of television production.
It's so much that we could continue to talk about. Gorgeous friends, thank you for coming and joining us tonight. Thank you for the team at ACME on all of the elements of tonight's exhibit, and thank you to the people at Play School for the deep work you do around these big ideas. And friends, please join with me in thanking this amazing panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.